Hello and welcome to today's webinar on soaring into real-world SOC management. My name is Chris, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I know we're going to be covering a lot of great content. We're going to be discussing sort of how security operations centers and teams have been structured historically, how that's sort of changing today, and where we see it going into the future. But before we begin, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. So just so everyone's aware, this session is being recorded and will be emailed out to you later today once we're done and concluded here. And furthermore, at the end of this session, we will be hosting a Q&A. So feel free to use the Q&A button or even the chat button at the bottom of your control panel for this Zoom webinar and ask those questions at any point in time, whenever they pop into your head, and we'll help address them all at the end. So today we'll be starting with a quick introduction on everyone who's presenting today, along with sort of how this topic came to be, sort of, again, historically, the existing SOC approach and how the teams are structured, how that transitions into the future, and kind of overall the benefits, the pros and cons of a tier list and a hybrid approach to the Security Operations Center. And then we'll cap everything off by showcasing how specifically automation and orchestration can help achieve these new approaches to your SOC management system. So as mentioned, my name is Chris, and I'm a marketing manager here at Simplify. And joining me today is Oleg, our senior security solutions architect, and Arno, who's one of our technical account managers. Both of them have had extensive experience in the past, both working in and managing security operations centers and teams. So trust me, they have a ton of knowledge and a lot of great insights for everyone. So with that, I'm excited to hand things over to Oleg.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining. Really happy to have you here. So our session for today is concentrating and is built on a good article that was written by Deloitte and Chronicle or Google Cloud. So this article opened up our mind to see and really think on what would the next generation security operations look like in the near future. And I recommend everybody on this call to go ahead and read it after the session. So this mostly referring to a next generation security operations centers we're seeing more and more these days, which is powered by automation and new technologies such as SOAR, XDR, and more. And so we try to rethink the way security operations are structured these days. There's no right and wrong, right? It's a thought leadership session because we really liked the idea. So we have decided to take it one step further and try to imagine how security operations centers would look like in the near future. So let's start speaking about the existing approach, which I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with, right? If you think of a security operations center these days, there's a status quo on how the structure of a SOC would look like, right? Let's say there's been a new malware alert that your security operations center received, and a SIEM maybe, and in most organizations, the handling flow would be very similar, right? We have tier 0, which is often combined with tier 1. That will run either automatic or maybe manual enrichment based on the SOC maturity, and will make a decision, depending on the outcome, right? Whether the alert is suspicious or false positive, that's usually how those tiers are doing. So in case it was found a suspicious, tier 2 will get the enriched alert and will extend the investigation, trying to find more indicators. And in most cases, will close the case after full remediation. So in most cases, tier 3 is responsible on the threat hunting part of the house. In some cases, overlaying tier 2 while trying to fish for ADPs and things that might have passed the existing security controls or solutions, right? So in this security operations center structure that is most common today and that everyone listening would be able to relay, a case will move from tier to tier, changing owner in the way. So basically, as the case is being escalated, analysts from different tiers throw the responsibility of the case from one another. The transition from tier 1 to tier 2 and from tier 2 to tier 3 costs time, even with automation. and people lose some context because they need to understand the previous comments, the previous analysts and previous teams, and they haven't maybe worked with this teams even until today. The second problem that we see here is that as the case is being escalated by analysts up the ladder, it's going from your less experienced people to more experienced people. So that would be the structure. And if there's a major event, you put your least experienced people to deal with it first, because your tier one will be the first people who will get any type of case, right? Even if it's the most dangerous malware we've ever seen before, right? So another problem that we're facing here, which we will deep dive in a second, is that we're basically locking our talents. In this case, tier one and tier two. We're locking them in a closed group, surrounding them by people with the same skills. So in this case, analysts have hard time to improve and advance because when you think of that as a tier one analyst and your day-to-day work is doing the same routine activities that the whole tier one team does, and you really have less challenges to learn from and advance, and that's a lose for everybody, for the SOC analysts and for the SOC management itself. So this traditional structure, which has been popular even today for so many years, at least from the 90s, I think, when we started seeing the first NOC or the first IT groups, and this has served us very well until today. And the question we started asking after seeing this article by Deloitte and Google Chronicle is whether this approach, which was adopted so many years ago, is still relevant today in 2021. When you think of that, the technology which drives the operational teams, the NOC, the SOC, the IT, it changed and it evolved so dramatically. Is this really the right structure still relevant here today? So the complications we see in the current SOC structure, even with some of the new technologies that I've mentioned before added to it, is that our tier one analysts are being in an endless loop of triaging and following scripts. This disables them from evolving and organizations from improving the SOC, even if they have the potential in many cases. So on top of that, source solutions are being adopted to do most of the triage and having all the analysts work in a centralized workbench. And so sometimes leaving both the SOC managers and the analysts confused about how would their day-to-day look alongside these technologies. This tiered approach doesn't promote collaboration between the different teams or departments, such as IT or your NOC or your change management, and that leads to hanging cases and lack of responsibility. Today's analysts don't worry as much about things they used to chase and spend time on, like maybe alert fatigue or SIEM configurations, thanks to all those technologies. But they tend to worry more about their personal advancement and contribution to your organization. So it's very clear that a SOC consists of three main core pillars: people, process, and technology. As you understand from the previous slides, today we'll focus on the people and we'll talk and deep dive into that. So different people have different skill set, different experience, and different goals. Since now the automation is taking care of the most boring stuff, data enrichment, closing false positive, the cases that actually get to the analyst today and needed to be reviewed are usually high quality cases that require the analyst's attention. Most people agree that even with the automation running most of the tier one tasks, analysts are still needed. They're an important and rare talent for every organization. Let's agree, there will never be enough analysts. The question is, where do they fit now alongside the automation, and how would we structure a SOC that utilizes new technology? How do we take this good talent and reorganize it so it'll fit to handle your new challenges? So the new approach and the concept transformation Deloitte and Google have been talking about in this article is to make the SOC more oriented to the process or the problem. In a second, we'll see how it would potentially look like, but the idea is as following. instead of moving a case up the ladder from the least experienced people, what we call tier one nowadays, to the more experienced people, which is typically tier two or tier three, wasting a lot of time and losing context, why not having one person who is assigned to the same case and is responsible for it as long as the case is open, somewhat like an account manager, if I may, right? And so this person would take it through the process it needs to go through until it's solved, while of course involving different people with different skill sets and different teams and departments. So in this case, if a malware alert would be received by a SIEM, it'll go through the automation, which will probably close around 95% of the false positives and will be completely unreached. Then the case assignee will be the same person as long as the case is alive, and we'll review that how it looks like in a second. So that person will invite different experts relevant to that particular alert to triage it completely. So if it would be found as false positive, you can see in this arrow here, they would go back to the automation piece and improve it. So next time they will receive less noise. If not, more people from the investigation team will be involved. So that would actually create a situation where the responsibility isn't thrown from tier to tier, and the collaboration piece to bring all the relevant stakeholders together, which makes it very important for them, right? So junior analysts can now collaborate on the same case with senior analysts and learn from the engagement and the ecosystem instead of only working around junior analysts. And that basically makes a single point of contact for every case that we'll be responsible for as long as the case is alive. So just before hanging it over to the demo, the way that it will actually look like is really forming a squad of subject matter experts, as you can see here, which will be formed from a different experts relevant for that particular area or problem. And instead of moving the case between different tiers, we'll invite different experts to the case so they concentrate on the problem. Imagine a world where every case that you get has gone through the automation and raised a flag, which requires human intervention. All your relevant or most relevant people for that particular case will be invited and involved together. So first of all, they can learn from one another, but second of all, they can concentrate on a problem. And so in this case, we'll have one case owner, which is would be a junior analyst, right? Let's say even who will invite, for example, relevant EDR experts or SIEM experts or senior analysts who will take a look at it, but also people from other departments like your network and IT. On top of that, what we see is very recommended and beneficial is to have a SOAR engineer overlaying all of that process. So that a SOAR engineer can also learn what people are doing and then go back to the automation piece and make things faster for them for the next time. So just for a summary, the tierless approach advantages are very obvious. We have a squad of relevant people that's focused on solving a problem. Each person brings their own expertise and together they form an entity, which is called a squad. So this entity would solve the problem faster. That would accelerate the triage and containment processes and allow each squad member to learn from their peers' expertise. It'll allow your talent to evolve faster, learn better, and concentrate more on the problem instead of doing the same thing over and over again, while really advancing and enhancing your operational efficiency. So that's a win-win for everybody. The consideration that we should take for this are, first of all, this comes out of the assumption that you already have advanced technologically. So this approach assumes you have a SOAR platform and automation in place and that you own the required SOC talent today. This approach also assumes that you already collaborate with different teams like the SOC and the IT and the change management and network and so on, really as part of your incident handling processes. And it relates to security operations centers who have the talent. Now, in case the SOC doesn't have the talent, analysts or subject matter experts, a hybrid approach, which includes an MSSP as an outsourcer, could be achieved, which I'll show you right now, and then we'll go to the demo. So the idea of the hybrid approach is that, let's say we have a new case that's coming in and we have never seen this case before. Maybe we don't have that subject matter expert in our SOC. So instead of just overlaying the entire tier one or tier two or tier three from an MSSP, we can invite someone really relevant. So if we have a skill shortage on that particular type of alert, which we just received, which is new to our SOC, we can outsource that specific area to an MSSP, which allows us to place one full-time employee per each major area that gets covered by an MSSP and work with them in the same squad. Once that's achieved, we get our internal staff trained on the things that we just outsourced. We will fulfill the missing skill set by learning, cover the bigger surface in our SOC for the future, and then repeat if needed. The alerts won't stop coming or they won't stop amazing us, but we will get ready better for what's ahead by having the talent in-house, available, and growing along with us. So with that, I'll hand it over to Arnaud now for a demo. Thank you. Arnaud, it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much, Oleg. Hello, everyone. My name is Arnaud. I'm a senior technical account manager here at Simplify. I've been here for about 1.5 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with quite a few of our clients in implementing Simplify and evaluating some of the methodologies and the approaches. Really, I think Oleg did a good job of describing kind of the SOC landscape today. We're all very familiar with many of the issues that are faced, primarily around skill shortages and alert fatigue. And really, the discussion around these enhancements and this new approach is to alleviate some of those issues, right? And really, it's all about faster alert triage, fewer handovers, as well as greater context and the ability to collaborate with your peers, all towards the goal of achieving faster alert resolution. So to that end, I'm going to give a quick demo here of Simplify. And we're going to discuss some of the workflow improvements that Oleg has suggested and how we can incorporate those at a more practical level. So this, for those that are unfamiliar, is the case overview screen that an analyst is presented when they log into Simplify. We can see a few components being the case queue along the left-hand side, along with all of the rich visual elements that are already annotated there for the analyst. We see that we have at the top, within this particular case, a grouping of 4 alerts. In this case, 3 phishing emails and 1 data exfiltration. And we can see that this is one of the first components or one of the first benefits that Simplify provides, is that we are not doing alert-centric triaging. We are looking at case and threat-centric, meaning we try to group together all of the elements based on the entities that we're able to accumulate from the individual alerts and group them together to really give better context, to be able to see that perhaps looking at the C2 traffic alert real quick, we have one alert, which is an out of working hours login, which may come from our Active Directory event logs. We see here an IRC connection, which could be from a proxy or a firewall, and then an EDR related virus alert. And by seeing these grouped together and not having individual analysts investigate these individually, we're able to get some better context regarding what this case looks like as a whole and what the intrusion as a whole might be and how far, in fact, it did get into the network. As part of the creation of these alerts and their grouping into a case, we can see here on the right-hand side, we have the different entities and artifacts which were created. These are file paths, hashes, users, IP addresses, URLs, and other items of interest, commonly referred to as IOCs. This allows us, once we've normalized our data for all of the alerts that we receive, regardless of the source, we're able to then do a comparison, which allows this grouping to occur, and call out the relevant entities that are appropriate for each case. While this is one context, we do also have the ability to hit the Explore button over here and go view some different visualizations regarding the alert structure. So as on the case overview screen, we have a timeline here at the bottom. We're even able to go ahead and replay the sequence, but we can see here that we're able to see the entities within context by looking at the individual alerts. And as well, because these have already gone through an automated enrichment, we see some additional contextual fields on the right-hand side that were pulled back from that enrichment. So in this case, we see a login involving a workstation and a user. We see the outbound connection, and then we see the payload and the detonation as picked up by the EDR platform. We have from this screen the availability or the ability to do some more in-depth investigation if this is the preference. We can click on individual entities. We have the ability to go ahead and execute manual actions to bring back yet more relevant data. And all of this is available through this screen. Moving back to our case overview screen, we can see a couple of items that have occurred. So we can see here that for each of the alerts that were grouped in, we had a playbook attached, and we can see down here the playbook execution. This one is in fact, let me go back to my relevant alert here. And this one is in fact paused and waiting at a manual action to be executed by the analyst. In the middle of the screen here, we have insights which were created as part of the playbook execution, which was attached to each of these alerts. Throughout the course of that playbook execution, that automated enrichment, we were able to determine some very valuable information regarding these entities or IOCs that were seen as part of these alerts. And those are now called out here front and center as part of the investigation to be immediately accessible to the analyst in order to give them the ability to make smart decisions quickly. Now we do have, as the flow progresses and as the case is investigated, in the back end of the platform, there's all the usual settings, role definitions, and a bunch of items which can be modified to incorporate the workflow that Oleg discussed. With regards to the practical application, we can see here that this case now appears in our case queue. For the most part, the playbook that we've attached has almost completed its enrichment here. And it is now available for the analyst to continue with. The first modification which Oleg suggested, which was really having that smarter triage team, right? Having some more experienced analysts, part of the initial triage, is really meant to add any additional context relevant to this alert that was not determined pragmatically or through an API call or through the execution of the playbook. There can be a wide variety of reasons for this, right? There is always within an organization additional contextual data that is not always referenceable in a pragmatic manner, meaning there are no API calls, it's not stored in the database. There is a lot of information which is in the heads of the analysts and the engineers that have been within the company for quite a while. And so as part of the initial triage team that Oleg was suggested, a more experienced analyst can go ahead, can see this case within a case queue that is scoped just to them, is able to reference the users, the networks, the machines, and all the enrichments that have been automatically created as part of this. But then the goal is for them to go ahead and add in the specific context of their experience, for there to either be one engineer or a team of engineers from different departments working in a concentrated effort to really, in a fast manner, provide additional context relevant within the organization above and beyond what was able to be enriched automatically, to be able to provide that context to the investigator that has ultimately handed this case to continue on with the investigation. And that rich handover is meant to save the junior analyst's time in going and researching all of that information. There's typically, in a tiered approach, a progression of the amount of information that the different tiered analysts need in order to make the decisions relative to their tier. And they focus on that information to make a decision regarding false positive, true positive before deciding to hand up to a higher tier who may need to go out and gain additional contextual knowledge in order to now make the more advanced decisions required at that stage of the investigation. And so the first part, I think the first improvement, and so we can see down here, I just wanted to go ahead and call out quickly, obviously, our ability to go ahead and add free-form comments, as well as any other information have that tacked onto the case wall, which becomes the audit trail of everything that has happened during the course of this investigation. And now when there is that handover now from initial triage over to the analyst or the investigator who will own this case for the rest of its lifetime, they not only have all of the slightly more simplistic automated enrichments, but that rich contextual information that's delivered from the experience of the engineers as well. This then allows them to take the investigation or proceed with the investigation in whatever manner the analyst decides. And there are a couple of options that we have then to go back to that. So the analyst then has the ability to obviously go ahead and attach additional playbooks. If there is additional information that they wish to glean or to go down that investigative path, we can design modular playbooks that still go ahead and accomplish the goals of the analyst in a very directed, automated fashion. Inevitably, however, there is probably yet some additional collaboration and investigation that needs to take place before an analyst is able to make a determination regarding this. And this is really, I think, where part of the power and the flexibility of Simplify comes through, is this ability to, regardless of kind of the internal processes, to mimic those processes within Simplify and not have to radically modify SOC operations in order to go ahead and accomplish this. So the first item that I would like to showcase is, throughout the course of the investigation, the analyst determines that there is need for further collaboration from additional SMEs that are available to them. We have the ability within Simplify to go ahead and choose to open this case or promote this case really to being an incident within what we're calling Command Center. And we can see here, there's a link that takes us to Command Center, and I have a tab open. And Command Center is really meant to be this collaboration portal for all parties that need to be involved in the investigation and disseminating information relevant to this incident. The important aspect here is that while there is licensing and licensed analysts within the platform, within a Command Center incident, we have the ability to go ahead and manage the collaborators who will be invited to participate. And we can go ahead and invite them from this screen. No analyst license required. And now this gives us a single pane of glass in order to more accurately collaborate and have everyone be on the same page with regards to the next steps in the investigation. We can see here that there are updates that are provided. There's a severity score that can be modified during the course of the investigation as new information is learned. We have operational statuses from different departments. This can be different SMEs that come in and the responsibilities as are required from the individual departments in the resolution of this incident. We have the ability to pull up a chat window to go ahead and have somewhat informal discussions with the other participants regarding the investigation of this incident, as well as a workstation screen, which really goes ahead and becomes the audit trail for all of the work that is done as part of this investigation. We can see here that we're able to set reminders or SLAs regarding things such as check-in. And this allows an investigator to pull in anybody at all that they wish in order to give them the necessary context to proceed with their investigation. So as we come back here, the other part that I wanted to mention quickly is that the chat over in Command Center is very nice in order to go ahead and informally collaborate with other users. And we do, in fact, as an upcoming feature improvement within the product, we're introducing a new feature that is called Collaboration Portal. And really, Collaboration Portal takes some of the items that we've been discussing here today and really brings it to the next level. Some specific examples of that would essentially be chatting from within the case management page, not needing to promote an incident into Command Center in order to go ahead and collaborate with all the peers. If there are other security analysts within the platform that you wish to bring in or to have look at this case during the course of your investigation, the chat capabilities as well as some of the additional improvements within Collaboration Portal, regardless of if it's within an enterprise, if it's a hybrid approach, and some of the investigators are internal to an enterprise, perhaps with some of the other SMEs belonging to the MSSP. All of that would be possible by pulling in all of those relevant parties as part of this investigation. So really, this was a very brief overview of the capabilities that are available within Simplify, but choosing to highlight the collaboration aspects and the ability to bring in the SMEs to provide that additional context, as well as the maintaining one case owner during the lifetime of the investigation in order to go ahead and not have any lapse in communication during potentially the 2 or 3 handovers that this incident would have during the course of a more traditional investigation. So with that said, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it back over to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Arno, and thank you, Oleg, for the presentation and the demonstration. We really appreciate it. As mentioned at the top of this presentation, we'll jump into a Q&A. So once again, you can use the control panel at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions, but we'll kick off with some that have already been typed in there. The first question being, can our platform be delivered as a service?
Absolutely, I'm happy to take that one. We absolutely have a SaaS offering, which eliminates some of the infrastructure requirements for hosting Simplify yourself. We have multi-tenancy within the product, as well as the concept of a remote agent, which would allow some of the more secure communication from a cloud instance that would be required within the heart of your data center to go ahead and integrate with some of the tools and the products that you have within your data center. So that is absolutely possible.
Awesome. And you kind of answered the next question, but I'll still ask it. Is our platform multi-tenant?
It absolutely is. There is an ability to define environments within Simplify, which is what provides the multi-tenancy. We have the ability to scope connectors, which is how we ingest alerts, as well as all of the different products that a playbook reaches out to. We can scope those by environment, as well as have dedicated remote agents by environment in order to, from one multi-tenant platform, reach into multiple client environments to integrate with their security products as needed to investigate their alerts.
Awesome. The next question is, can reports be generated through the command center?
Reports can absolutely be generated through the command center. So if I come up here, I just need to remember, here we have an incident report. That'll go ahead and create, and we can see down here, I have a document, which I'm not going to open at the moment, but we absolutely do prepare or have a pre-canned report that is downloadable, containing all of the information and the audit trail. Oh, apologies. I just realized I wasn't sharing out my screen anymore. Nobody was able to see what it is that I was doing. We do have the ability to download reports. The reports contain all of the information from the workstation wall and command center, which is the full audit trail of all the activities and all of the changes that have occurred during the investigation of that incident.
Another question, what SIM solutions do we integrate with?
Oh, there are a good many. Am I able to share, Chris? And I'll quickly go
Sure.
show a marketplace screen here, and we can review some of that. So I will say that if for anyone who's interested in further evaluating our integrations and the connectors that are available within each one, as well as the individual actions or API calls, currently within each integration, you are able to go out to integrations.simplify.co to see the full list. I will show here within the platform. So we have a couple of different marketplaces, use cases and analytics, but with regards to alert ingestion and SIMs specifically, as I move over to our integrations marketplace, we'll be able to see close to the 200 integrations that are available here. And with regards to SIMs specifically, Alien Vault, ArcSight, QRadar, Elastic, Splunk, Azure Sentinel, and those are just the ones I'm able to name off the top of my head. But more than likely, if it's a player within the SIEM market, we probably have an integration and a connector available for them. But it's always best to jump out to integrations.simplify.co and double check. Let me go ahead and stop sharing.
Awesome. Oops. Thank you, Arnaud. So I think actually we're going to wrap things up there. So thank you again, Arnaud, for the presentation and for answering those questions. Thank you, Oleg, as well, for sharing your insights. Before we wrap things up, I do want to just let everyone know who's on the presentation today, that if you liked what you saw, if you're interested in learning more, if you'd like to get your hands on Simplify for yourself, we do have a free community edition of the platform. You can go to simplify.co/community and download it from there. Within our platform, we do have a ton of ready to deploy use cases, which Arnaud actually kind of just like showed there for a second. You can build your own playbooks, integrate with your existing solutions, respond to real security alerts. It's fully functioning, just with like a few limited capabilities compared to our enterprise edition. And that also grants you access to our SOAR community, where you can get help from experts and talk to other security operations professionals about whatever you'd like. So with that, thank you everyone once again for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll be reaching out shortly. Thank you.